everyone, this is Karen.
Hey everybody, I'm Shane.
Today we're looking at part 1 of soybeans.
The miracle crop.
And the vocabulary words are consume.
Consume.
The average person consumes over 3 grams of salt per day.
Reputation.
Reputation.
Reports that employees were treated poorly have ruined the company's reputation.
Demand.
Demand.
Rory complained that his new girlfriend demands constant attention.
Production.
Production.
Global steel production fell in the first 3 months of 2020.
Content.
Content.
Nuts have a high fat content, so they provide a lot of energy. So we're talking about soybeans.
Soybeans. If you're a vegetarian, soybeans are your best friend.
Really?
Because I'm a vegetarian. And soybeans can be made into so many things.
And it's high in protein too, and oil, so you can get your protein oil from soybeans.
Yeah, you can replace meat with soybean or soybean products like soy milk, and tofu, and tempeh. And they can use soy, texturized soy, to kind of like make imitation meats. So you can still have the same texture of eating meat, but without hurting animals.
That is amazing. But let me ask you this. Before you became a vegetarian, did you eat a lot of soybeans, or was it after you became a vegetarian?
It was really more after I stopped eating meat, I realized the benefits and how wonderful soybeans were.
And there's so many things that you can do with soybeans too.
Right. They can be used, like, because the oil in there can be used. I think even Henry Ford used soybean to kind of make like plastics or stuff for his cars.
I know. That's pretty amazing. So it's not only for eating.
Yeah, it's very, very versatile. And you can feed it to cows and things like that to make them grow bigger, so you can also make more meat. So everybody likes soybeans.
I love soybeans too, and I love soy milk.
Okay, let's learn more about the miracle crop.
All right.
Soybeans, the miracle crop. Nature has gifted us with a variety of crops, but only one, the humble soybean, has earned the title of miracle crop. What makes this plant so special? To begin with, soybeans are highly versatile, which means they can be grown in a number of climate conditions and consumed in different ways. When soybean seeds first arrived in America from China in the mid-18th century, they were planted for the purpose of making soy sauce. During the Civil War, when coffee beans were scarce, soldiers used soybeans to make a coffee substitute.
Today's lesson is called soybeans. The miracle crop. Part 1. Hello everyone, my name is Jeff.
And I'm Mike. Yes, soybeans, they are a miracle. They're a gift from the heavens or something.
From God.
From God, all right. So if we say something is a miracle, it's almost magical, it's amazing, it's incredible. Why are we talking about a bean as being a miracle crop? Well, probably because soybeans, unlike some of those other lazier beans that don't really do very much, is really great. Soybeans can be used in lots of different ways. You know, white beans, fava beans, kidney beans, they're just beans. The soybean, though, it does more than your average bean.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing. We're going to read about it for 2 days. You couldn't read about green beans for 2 days.
If you're going to put it that way, all right. Those other beans are lazy.
They got to try harder.
Anyways, yes, the soybean is very versatile. Anyways, let's go ahead and start reading. Nature has gifted us with a variety of crops, but only one, the humble soybean, has earned the title of miracle crop. Crop from God. Now, what makes this plant so special? I guess that's the question of the day.
Well, we're going to find out. So, yeah, what makes soybeans so special, so much of a miracle? It says, well, to begin with, soybeans are highly versatile, or versatile, as some people say. What does that mean? Which means they can be grown in a number of climate conditions and consumed in different ways. So there you go. 2 reasons why the soybean is so great. It can be grown in a number of climate conditions. Basically, you don't need perfect weather in only one part of the world to grow soybeans. They can be grown all over the place, in rainy places and dry places, cool places, warm places. And they can be consumed in different ways. We can use soybeans. Of course, when we talk about consume, we talk about eating things. You will consume food to give your body energy. But we can also use consume when we talk about other things that we use up. Cars consume gasoline to give them energy. If you make a fire, you will be consuming wood to create the flames and the heat that make the fire. So we're using these things up often in a way to make energy or something like that. So we're eating soybeans, but we're also using them in other ways. We'll find out all about that very soon. But look at this word consume in our example sentence, which says the average person consumes over 3 grams of salt per day. So yeah, we eat it and we use it in our bodies.
Okay, moving on.
Yes.
When soybean seeds first arrived in America from China in the mid-18th century, they were planted for the purpose of making soy sauce. By the way, I've heard that the bean, the soybean, actually got its name from the sauce and not the other way around.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, people made soy sauce with this plant, and later on they said, hey, the bean that we need to make this sauce, let's call it the soybean because we make soy sauce with it.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So there you go. People were putting that wonderful salty black soy sauce on their food a long time ago. And then about 100 years later, during the Civil War, when coffee beans were scarce, soldiers used soybeans to make a coffee substitute. So here's use number 2. A time of war, often things become scarce. They're hard to find. You can't get them so easily. Soldiers still wanted some kind of delicious drink, delicious hot drink. They couldn't find coffee beans, so they roasted up some soybeans and used those to make a coffee substitute, something like coffee that they could drink with their breakfast.
Is there caffeine in
I don't think so.
soybeans?
No, it would be different. There you go. Use number 2, though, of soybeans already. Let's take a break, and then we'll be back with more of the miracle crop.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天的课文标题是 Soybeans, the miracle crop。好 ，soybean 就是黄豆，那么 the miracle crop 是指奇迹作物。Mike 老师在开场时，他有提到几种豆类植物，像 white bean 白腰豆 ，fava bean 是指蚕豆 ，kidney bean 是指大红豆花豆。那么 green bean 则是指四季豆。好，那么老师说到这些豆啊，都不如黄豆那么了不起。好，这时候老师用到 incredible 来形容黄豆，就是拼作 incredible 表示了不起的、非常棒的，或是可以形容是惊人的、难以置信的。好，那到底是什么让黄豆这种植物这么特别，可以得到奇迹作物的称号呢？好，首先它的用途很广泛，可以在好几种气候条件下生长，那么又可以有不同的食用方式。在18世纪中叶呢，黄豆的种子从中国抵达美国的时候，他们是种来做酱油的。那么在美国内战期间呢，当时咖啡豆短缺，士兵们则是用黄豆来当做咖啡的替代品。那我们先来看单字 consume。Consume 是动词，表示吃喝或者是消耗，像消耗掉能源之类的。那补充单字 versatile 或是念作 versatile， 它是形容多功能的、多种用途或是多才多艺的。那这边还有2个重点，第一个 make 加受词加受词补语是表达使某人或某事物成为怎么样，或是变得怎么样。make 在这边表示使成为、使变得。那么受词补语我们可以用名词或形容词。来看两个例句。The news made her sad. 那个消息使她很难过。那我们这边受词补语就是用 sad 这个形容词。The film made him an international superstar. 那部电影使他成为国际巨星。那这边受词补语我们就是用 an international superstar 用名词来当补语。好，第二个重点 for the purpose of 加上名词或动名词，表示为了什么什么的目的。举例来说，The event was held for the purpose of raising money for children with cancer. 那场活动的目的是为了帮助癌症病童来募款。好，那我们接着回到课文中。
Soybeans, the miracle crop. The reputation of soybeans as a miracle crop took root in the early 1900s, when their many uses became known. The scientist George Washington Carver discovered that soybeans were a valuable source of protein and oil. In the 1930s, automobile producer Henry Ford even built cars with plastic made from soybeans.
Okay, these days, soybeans have a fantastic reputation. People think of them as being a miracle crop, a crop from God. Now, the reputation of soybeans as a miracle crop took root, or this is where things got started, in the early 1900s when their many uses became known. By the way, your reputation is what people commonly think of you, okay? When someone mentions your name, the first things that come into someone else's mind about you, that's your reputation. Do they think good things about you or bad things about you? That is your reputation. For example, reports that employees were treated poorly have ruined the company's reputation. Before, people thought that they were really nice people working there at that company, but it turns out that they were really nasty to their employees. So people thought, you know what, forget them. They're in the past. We don't like those people anymore. Their reputation is ruined forever.
Okay, so the public doesn't think good things about that company, but they do think good things about soybeans. Now, we saw early on soybeans were used to make soy sauce and then kind of this fake coffee, but it was only about 100 years ago that people really began to discover how useful soybeans were. And there's one person in particular who was very interested in exploring the uses of soybeans. It says, the scientist George Washington Carver discovered that soybeans were a valuable source of protein and oil. Things you might not think about a bean. You might, make something out of it, eat it, put it in hot water, drink it, but using it to make protein, as a way to give your body a lot of healthy nutrients, it's just a bean. It's not a big piece of meat. That's where you normally might get protein from. And oil, now that's totally different. Oil for cooking or oil for doing other things with.
And Mike, it doesn't stop there.
Wow.
In the 1930s, automobile producer Henry Ford even built cars with plastic made from soybeans.
Wow, you could recycle those cars.
Plastic. Or you could eat them.
Or you could eat them or make them into a delicious coffee.
That too.
Possibly.
All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
在20世纪初，人们就已经知道黄豆有许多用途。那么当时奇迹作物这个名声呢，就已经深植人心了。好，单字 reputation reputation 就可以指名声、声誉。那么文中则是用到 take root 来表达，像是可能某个想法或看法，它深入人心、扎根的意思。好，课文接着写到说，有一位科学家他发现了黄豆是蛋白质和油脂的重要来源。那么在1930年代，汽车制造商亨利·福特甚至还用黄豆做成的塑胶来制造汽车。老师们就开玩笑说，那种黄豆塑胶可以拿来吃或是泡咖啡，这开玩笑的。好，那不管怎么样，早在100年前左右呢，黄豆就已经被人们广泛应用了，真不愧是奇迹作物。我们接着回到课文中。
Soybeans, the miracle crop. After World War II, the United States became wealthier, and more people demanded meat on their plates. To support this increased meat production, farmers used soybean meal to feed their livestock because of its cheap cost and high protein content. All the while, soy remained a steady part of Americans' diets, though mostly in refined forms.
Okay, let's move forward a little bit. After World War II, the United States became wealthier and more people demanded meat on their plates. No more of these vegetables and potatoes and such. I want meat. We're wealthy now. Give me meat.
Yeah, that's what they were demanding. When you demand something, you ask for something and you won't take no for an answer. You're basically saying, give this to me, and if you don't, well, I won't be happy about it, right? So people will demand their rights. They will demand to speak to the manager if they're really angry in a store and they want to make a big complaint or something like that. They're not saying, please, would you mind if you ask the manager? No, I'm going to talk to the manager. You're going to get him and I'm not going to leave till it happens. That's what they're demanding. So people, back then they had a bit more money and they said, growing up I only ate chicken once a year, but now I want steak every day, and if you don't give me steak, I'm gonna ask for it again.
How
basically,
about a pork chop?
Pork chop's okay too. So anyway, people wanted more meat. There was a huge demand for it, or a large group of people were saying, this is what we want, please bring it to us. For example, Rory complained that his new girlfriend demands constant attention.
Anyways, back to the soybean. Now, to support this increased meat production, remember,
meet the demand,
everybody in America wanted meat. To support this increased meat production, farmers used soybean meal to feed their livestock because of its cheap cost and high protein content. How about that? By the way, production, that's the noun. That comes from the verb produce. When you produce something, you make something, usually in large numbers, okay? Production is the act of making or producing stuff. That's all there is to it. For example, global steel production fell in the first 3 months of 2020. People weren't making that much steel.
Oh, okay. But they were making a lot of meat back during the time after the war. So, of course, they needed a lot of livestock, pigs and cows and, animals to make the meat. And when we talk about soybean meal, here we're not using meal like breakfast, lunch, dinner. These are the meals you might eat. Here we're talking about prepared food that we feed to farm animals. That's the kind of meal we're talking about here. So basically, they were using soybean to feed to pigs and cows and things like that. It was cheap and it had a high protein content. All right, protein is something good that we get in our food. In meat, we might have vitamin content in vegetables and fruits and things like that. So what is content? It's an amount of something inside of something else, basically. If you talk about this thing, what is inside it? What is it all made up of? That is the content. So we can talk about about the content of food in terms of protein and vitamins and minerals. We could talk about the content of a book, about, oh, it's an adventure book for children with lots of magic and exciting scenes. That's the content. That's what's inside this thing. For example, when we get back to the idea of food content, nuts have a high fat content, so they provide a lot of energy. That's why nuts can be quite healthy, but also fattening.
Anyways, all the while, soy remained a steady part of Americans' diets, though mostly in refined form.
Oh, so they're not just eating bowls of soybeans.
They were not eating bowls of soybeans. They were eating soy, but in refined forms. How interesting. All right, folks, that's it for today's lesson, and it's time for us to say bye-bye.
Go get some soy.
在第二次世界大战之后，美国变得更富裕，越来越多人有吃肉的需求。那么肉类产量要增加，就必须要有更多的饲料来喂这些牲畜嘛。于是农民呢就用豆粕来喂养家畜，因为它价格便宜，而且蛋白质含量又高。那么文中这个 soybean meal 不是指黄豆大餐哦 ，soybean meal 它是指黄豆粕，就是黄豆炸过油之后的那个残渣。那这边还有3个单字 ，demand 在这边是当动词来表达需要或是要求 ，production 它是指生产、制造或是产量。那么 content 它是表达含量、成分。单字例句写到说，坚果的脂肪含量高。那 Mike 老师刚刚用到 fattening 这个字来描述它是容易使人发胖的。我们来拼一下 fattening fattening。好，那么课文最后写到说，一直以来啊，黄豆仍然是美国人饮食不变的一部分，不过大多都是精致的形式。这边有3个重点。第一个 all the while 它表示一直自始至终怎么样，整段时间都怎么样。举例来说 Pam spent 20 minutes looking for her sunglasses and then realized that she had been wearing them on top of her head all the while. Pam 花了20分钟找墨镜，后来才意识到她一直都把墨镜戴在头上。好，第二个重点呢 remain 在这边呢是当连缀动词来表达维持，仍然是怎么样，后面要接形容词或名词。例如Please remain silent during the show. 在表演过程中，请保持安静。第3个重点 ，though 在这边是当连接词来表达不过或是尽管，像是 Though it was cold, they went for a walk. 尽管天气寒冷，他们还是去散步了。好，以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Put on your seatbelt. We are going on a road trip across America on Route 66. We'll start driving in Chicago, Illinois, and end up in Santa Monica, California. That's almost 4,000 kilometers of road. Besides Illinois and California, Route 66 goes through 6 other states. They are Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. There are lots of stops along the way to visit attractions. Of course, we'll need to see the Grand Canyon in Arizona. I would like to visit some old caves in New Mexico too. I think we could cover around 300 kilometers a day. That way, we will finish our journey in less than 2 weeks. We're lucky to have this fine spring weather. In the winter, it can snow in Illinois. In the summer, the dry heat of Arizona and New Mexico can be terrible. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Here is more information.
Entrepreneur. This successful entrepreneur is very rich. Historic. July 4th, 1776 was a historic day for the USA. Marker. The marker shows how many miles we've walked. Monumental. Her monumental work has changed science forever. Numerical. The scientist used lots of numerical information. Order. Please put these books in the correct order. Pleasant. This music is very pleasant. Pronounce. Do you know how to pronounce this word? Remain. Tom's mother remained by his side while he was sick. Souvenir. Rita brought home many souvenirs from Europe. Did you learn something new today? I hope you did. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again later.
See you next time.